September 11th, 2001. The day time stood still. Anyone old enough to remember certainly can recall September 11th, 2001 in some way, shape, or form. The enduring power of the September 11 attacks is clear. An overwhelming share of Americans who are old enough to recall the day remember where they were and what they were doing when they heard the news. Whether you were in your office or just a mere 5-year-old child attending kindergarten, the mention of 9/11 jolts most of our deepest memories. Both our visual and emotional feelings are awakened when viewing the footage of American Airlines Flight 11 crashing into the North Tower of the World Trade Center complex in Lower Manhattan at 8:46 a.m. 17 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., the World Trade Center's South Tower was hit by United Airlines Flight 175, and within an hour and 42 minutes, both towers collapsed, leading to the demise of the other World Trade Center structures, including 7 World Trade Center and significantly damaging surrounding buildings. To add to this most horrific event, a third hijacked flight, American Airlines Flight 77, crashed into the west side of the Pentagon, and the fourth and final hijacked flight, United Airlines 93, crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m. This day is a pivotal moment in history that, no doubt, has shaped our American bravado. To the families who lost loved ones in 9/11, the pain is undoubtedly unbearable. Not only is it hard losing a loved one, there is archival footage of loved ones losing their life that for most of us, it's just too hard to comprehend. The date of September 11th also resonates a vile memory in the minds of family, friends, and co-workers of 40-year-old realtor Charlotte Fimiano. September 11th, 1997 was the day that time stood still for those who loved Charlotte Fimiano, a local, hardworking, well-liked, and successful realtor who was found murdered in a vacant home she was showing to a potential buyer in Saucon Valley, Pennsylvania. Strangled and shot in the head twice, Charlotte lay in a pool of her own blood for over 16 hours until her lifeless body was found the following morning. In a professional context, the expression "work hard, play hard" often means performing well in the office and then partaking in fun activities with friends and family during personal time. Charlotte Fimiano was the perfect example of a woman who worked hard and played hard. An outstanding real estate agent, she was a 10-year veteran of the real estate world, incredibly dedicated to her clients as well as her career. Over the years, Charlotte's hard work rewarded her husband Christian, daughter Christy, and herself with a nice life filled with good times, adventure, travel, and the finer things in life. A few months before her murder, Charlotte was celebrating a major milestone in her life. She and her husband Christian were hosting family and friends in their new home that they had built from the ground up. Unfortunately, the celebration and time spent in her new, well-deserved home was short-lived. The life she worked so hard to enjoy was brutally and viciously taken away from her on September 11th, 1997. At the time, Charlotte's murder revealed risks in an industry where sales agents, many of them women and often alone, routinely met strangers, sometimes in isolated locations, to show properties. But Charlotte was fearless and street smart. These attributes were some of the reasons Charlotte was fearless, never letting anyone or anything hold her back, and continually pushed herself to the next milestone for success. For these reasons, she agreed to meet a client she never met before, who requested to see a vacant, secluded home in Saucon Valley, Pennsylvania. Unfortunately for Charlotte, this fateful request was the appointment that ended her life. September 11th, 2022 will be the 25th anniversary of Charlotte's murder. Charlotte's killer, or killers, have been roaming free for 25 years. He, she, or they may be someone we know, someone we might have stood behind in line at the grocery store, possibly works side by side with you at your place of employment, or perhaps they may even be your next-door neighbor. The person or persons responsible for Charlotte's killing may have reaped the benefits of living free for the past 25 years, whether it be enjoying what life has to offer, perhaps raising a family, or just being able to roam free, live life without any constraints, and most of all, not be held accountable for the murder of a well-loved wife, mother, sister, daughter, co-worker, and friend. Charlotte's unsolved murder has led many theories over the years, such as, did the killer or killers target unescorted real estate agents? Was it someone who knew Charlotte? Could it have been a contracted hit? To this day, there are no leads, making it one of the Lehigh Valley's longest and most intriguing cold cases. Even though Charlotte's murder is considered a cold case, it is still an active and ongoing investigation. Perhaps you, the listener, might have something to offer that will help in the apprehension, arrest, and conviction of Charlotte's murder. Charlotte Fimiano was in the prime of her life, a vivacious, successful, attractive 40-year-old woman. She never got to enjoy the fruits of her labor, never got to spend her years with her husband Christian, never got to see her daughter Christy graduate college, get married, and have the pleasure of being a grandmother to Christy's children. She never got to spend any more time with her parents or her sister Bernadette and her young daughter. She was indeed a person whose life was cut short. This is a two-part episode. The first episode, you'll hear about Charlotte's life and how she was cruelly taken out of this world. In part 2, you'll hear the breakdown of the crime, how it happened, where it happened, never before released details about the crime, possible motives, and suspects. The ultimate goal is for arrest to be made that will lead to the conviction of this perplexing, unsolved murder that has lingered in the Lehigh Valley for 25 years. You're listening to Departed in Pennsylvania. Time is of the essence. The cold case of Charlotte Fimiano. Charlotte Fimiano was born on March 24th, 1957 in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Daughter to Anna Mae and Donald, sister to Bernadette, Donald and Joseph, mother to just one child, her daughter Christy. A lover of the outdoors, Charlotte often took long walks in the woods and spent many nights camping. Indeed, the love for the outdoors was inherited by her father Donald, who was an avid hunter and fisherman. After graduating from Phillipsburg High School and Warren County Vocational and Technical Institute in 1974, Charlotte found herself to be a young single mother to her daughter Christine, or Christy as Charlotte called her. When Christy was a toddler, Charlotte had moved the two of them into a townhome located on Easton's South Side neighborhood. Back then, Easton was known to have a high crime rate, but that didn't deter Charlotte. She had street smarts, a talent learned early on from her mother Anna Mae, who ran the Ego Hotel in her birth town of Phillipsburg, New Jersey. She was determined to make a better life for her and Christy, and did everything possible to make that happen. The newly single mother was a go-getter from the start, and always strived for perfection. With her twinkly blue eyes, and a smile that could scatter the gray clouds away, Charlotte demonstrated her work ethic from the start by keeping a full-time job at a local plastics company. While Charlotte was at work, Christy attended a local daycare in the heart of downtown Easton. Even though those early years found Charlotte without a car, she still managed to make it work. She wanted a better life for herself and Christy, and didn't let obstacles get in her way. Considering herself to be outgoing and finding it easy to talk to people, Charlotte took up a sales position as a bridal consultant at Siegel's Bridal Gallery, located in Northampton Street in Easton. Owner and boss Helene Siegel described Charlotte as a wonderful employee, and all the customers loved her. In the early 80s, a chance meeting with a young, handsome man at the Italian-American Club in Phillipsburg, New Jersey, proved to be fate for Charlotte, who then met Christian Fimiano. Not soon afterwards, they married on October 1st, 1983, in Wesley United Methodist Church in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Charlotte's wedding dress, as well as Christy's flower girl dress, were purchased at Siegel's Bridal, and nothing pleased owner Helene more. Not only was Helene excited for Charlotte in her new marriage, she was especially happy for Christy, because Helene watched her grow up to become a beautiful young woman. Even though they were both young enough to have children together, Charlotte and Christian were happy with just Christy. Christy was Charlotte's whole world, and Christian, including his mother, as well as the rest of his family, loved Christy and treated her as if she was Christian's own daughter. For a single mother of a young child, it was a dream to marry into a family that not only accepted her, but her young daughter as well. Like most young married couples, they put their money together and purchased their first home in Easton's working-class South Side, a home located at 30 South 14th Street in Easton, Pennsylvania. The home was a quaint, mere 1,253 square foot. Not the most spacious home, but for Charlotte, Christian, and Christy, it was plenty. It was a home, a place where all three could start to create memories as an official family. Christian and Charlotte were friendly with everyone in their neighborhood and were always in the street talking to neighbors. Neighbors said that if you needed anything, both Charlotte and Christian were always willing to help. At the time, the south side of Easton, where Charlotte, Christian, and Christy lived, was considered a high crime area. And although most of us try to avoid crime, sometimes it follows us when least expected. In January of 1990, Christian had a gun pointed at him not too far from his home on South 14th Street. Police said a man pointed a loaded gun at Christian and pulled the trigger, but it didn't fire. It's unknown what provoked the person pointing the gun, but the person responsible was apprehended. To this day, there is no other information about the incident. During the 3 years that Charlotte worked at Siegel's Bridal, she decided to elevate her sales experience by becoming a full-time realtor. First, starting off with Monahan Realty, then in 1986, she landed permanently with Weichert Realtors in Easton, Pennsylvania. Even though she had moved on, Charlotte still stayed in touch with Helene and the rest of the bridal staff. From the get-go, Charlotte secured her reputation as a realtor. She was an energetic go-getter, making her a highly recommended agent who committed herself to her career and her clients. Even when she was on the phone, colleagues described her as in constant motion, tapping her foot or tapping a pencil in anticipation of moving on to the next task, appointment, or whatever was next on her schedule. In the competitive world of sales, especially real estate, Charlotte was known to be no-nonsense, enthusiastic, aggressive, and self-confident. But even though she possessed some of these tough-as-nails characteristics, Charlotte was also dedicated, personal, professional, warm, caring, and most of all, a person with integrity. People wanted to be near her. In her personal life, she was a dedicated friend, ready to be there and give solid advice when asked. If a friend went to her for any type of advice, Charlotte would try to see the bright side of things and was a positive voice of reason. To her friends who had children, Charlotte loved them as if they were her own, acting like a second mom and bending over backwards to make her family and friends happy. Soon into her career, Charlotte distinguished herself by being a repeat member of the $1 Million Club. Not an easy feat by no means. Just to qualify for the $1 Million Club, agents must gross a commission of $45,000 or above, something that came to Charlotte quite easily. She was also a lifetime member of the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors Excellent Club, an organization whose members exhibited a high standard of professionalism through active participation in national, state, or local activities. For some agents, reaching this level of success can be intimidating, but for an overachiever like Charlotte, achieving monumental success came naturally to her. To add to her ever-impressive resume, Charlotte was a certified residential specialist, that being one of the highest credential awarded to residential sales agents, managers, and brokers. Her achievements and her hard work propelled her into the top 2%, a far cry away for a woman who started off her working career with barely anything except a beautiful young toddler and a dream as wide as the Texas sky. In her spare time, Charlotte volunteered and helped with fundraisers such as Make-A-Wish Foundation and Habitat for Humanity. To expand her network of colleagues, she became a member of the Kiwanis Club and local Chamber of Commerce. Charlotte's successful career spanned for 9 years at Weichert Realtors in Easton, Pennsylvania, and about a year before her murder, she transferred to the Bethlehem location, with her having her own office on the second floor of the building. The Bethlehem office had around 47 agents, and within the year of Charlotte hanging her license there, the Bethlehem office broke sales records with listings and sales going way over from the previous year of 1996. At the time, Weichert was one of the largest agencies in the Lehigh Valley. For a successful agent like Charlotte, she felt right at home. In the year that she spent at the Bethlehem office, her sales even soared higher, and in April of 1997, Charlotte's hard work finally paid off. She and Christian purchased a plot of land, roughly over a half an acre, for $35,000. The lot was located at 3436 Allen Street in Bethlehem Township, Pennsylvania, and almost immediately, they began to build their dream home, with the final result being a stunning ranch home that was 1,983 square feet, boasted 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, with a sweeping outdoor deck that overlooked the lush backyard. Vastly different from their former home in Easton, the Bethlehem home was located in a less densely packed, crime-riddled neighborhood. It was moments like these that Charlotte could start to enjoy everything she worked so hard for. At this point in time, 40-year-old Charlotte was living the American dream. Just 20 years ago, she was a young single mother, not even having her own car, having to rely on friends and family to get her to work in other places. With her constant commitment for excellence and the desire to continually push herself, Charlotte finally found a career that highlighted her strengths and attributes. Her daughter Christy was now 21 years of age and was a senior at East Stroudsburg University. The tough but loving parenting style that Charlotte had adapted throughout Christy's life certainly proved to be a positive outcome. Date: September 10th, 1997. Charlotte and another agent at Weichert Realty had been assigned opportunity calls, otherwise known as floor time. Floor time in real estate is an opportunity for real estate agents to generate leads and ultimately get clients. Sometimes prospective buyers or someone looking to list their home for sale might call or stop in without an appointment. When this situation arises, the attending agents can gain the possible client or sale without the typical marketing they are used to doing. This particular day, September 10th, 1997, a man called the Weichert office in Bethlehem and spoke to Charlotte directly. The caller had asked to see a home located at 2147 Chelsea Lane. The tri-level contemporary home had a listing price of $259,000 and sat on a lush, green, 3.65-acre lot which is surrounded by hills and woods. It boasted 4 bedrooms, a jacuzzi, 2 fireplaces, and was situated at the end of a small private driveway. The caller had asked to see the home the following day, September 11th, 1997, around 1 p.m. Charlotte obliged and wrote the caller's name in her day timer, or what is known today as a planner. Charlotte was meticulous and organized, wrote everything down, and carried her day timer around as if it were a Bible. Being a seasoned agent, Charlotte wasn't worried about showing a vacant home to someone she never met. She knew the protocol: never enter a vacant home alone, always make sure the client is in front of you, never behind when showing a home. And besides, she was street smart, having known to carry mace on her keychain. Date: September 11th, 1997. Location: Bethlehem Township, Pennsylvania. September 11th, 1997 started off like most average work days. September 11th, 1997 started off like most average work days for Charlotte. It was early September. The trees and landscape were still taking advantage of the last days of summer, full, lush, and green. It's the time of year that's worth savoring, because in a few short weeks, summer ends and the start of fall begins. That morning, Charlotte spoke and saw her husband Christian at their home. Christian worked 10-hour days at Atlantic States Piping in their neighboring Phillipsburg, New Jersey. It was about an 11-mile, 20-minute commute each way, with Christian arriving at work around 1:30 p.m. and returning home each day around 11:30 p.m. Since Charlotte worked an opposite schedule, the brief time in the morning was the perfect time for Charlotte and Christian to catch up before Charlotte headed out the door for another busy day in the world of real estate. This was the last time Christian would see Charlotte alive. In typical fashion, Charlotte stopped off at the Weichert office in Bethlehem before heading out to her already scheduled appointments. At some point that morning, Charlotte had called Christian, who was still at home. Missing her phone call, Christian returned her phone call from her around noon, but had gotten her voicemail instead. After her earlier obligations were met, Charlotte headed over to the property at 2147 Chelsea Lane. She was there to meet that prospective buyer, a man who wanted to see the home at 1 p.m. It was pouring rain when Charlotte headed up the private 600-foot driveway and waited for the man to show up. But after waiting a while, Charlotte realized she was being stood up by the potential buyer and headed back to the office, which was a 7-mile, 20-minute drive back to the Bethlehem office. Less than an hour later, Charlotte returned to the office, informing others that the potential buyer was a no-show. But soon after settling in at the office, Charlotte received a phone call. It was the same man who had stood her up. He explained he got caught in traffic, and was it possible she could drive out to the Chelsea Lane home again and meet him there? Not one to feel defeated, Charlotte again made the 7-mile, 20-minute drive to the Chelsea Lane address in Saucon Valley, Pennsylvania. Undoubtedly, being stood up can easily damage the ego, but for a go-getter like Charlotte, she let this faux pas roll off her back. It was just business, and another chance to sell a property that at the time was a pricier home. Certainly, the potential commission she would receive would push all resentment aside. And after all, this wasn't someone whose feathers got ruffled very easily. As she gathered her belongings and headed out the door, it was unknown to her fellow agents, as well as Charlotte, that it would be the last time anyone she loved would see her alive. Date: September 11th, 1997. Location: Bethlehem Township, Pennsylvania. As a commuter student, Christy made the 32-mile, 30-minute drive each way to East Stroudsburg University, located in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Undoubtedly, she looked forward to getting home, especially since she and her family lived in a brand new home, updated with all the modern amenities that one can enjoy all the time. Christy was used to having her mother at home when she arrived, but this particular evening, she found the house empty. Her stepdad Christian was at work, and Charlotte, well, Christy figured her mom was at a meeting or another social event. As a top agent, networking is a vital part of one's success, so at first, Charlotte's absence did not seem alarming. Nonetheless, Christy decided to call her mother's car cell phone and pager, and surprisingly, received no response from Charlotte. At some point during the evening, Christy spoke to Christian while he was at work, and casually mentioned that Charlotte wasn't home, and she had not responded to the calls to her car phone nor her pager. But again, Charlotte was involved in a number of networking events, so her absence that evening really didn't seem that out of the ordinary. Finishing his shift at Atlantic States Piping in Phillipsburg, New Jersey, Christian returned to the Allen Street home in Bethlehem Township around midnight. Like always, Christian was expecting Charlotte to be home when he arrived, but her car wasn't outside in the driveway, nor was her 1988 green Buick Delta in the garage. Becoming alarmed, Christian called the Bethlehem Township Police and reported her missing shortly after midnight. All through the night, Christian and Christy hoped that at any minute, Charlotte would walk through the door. But as the night went on and turned into early morning, they discovered that wasn't the case. When early morning the next day arrived and still no sign of Charlotte, Christy called Charlotte's office at Weichert Realtors and spoke with the office manager, and with her help, Christy was given the Chelsea Lane address, the same home Charlotte had shown to a potential buyer less than 24 hours earlier. While on the 7-mile drive to Chelsea Lane, Christy and her boyfriend called police. And as they turned onto the private road of Chelsea Lane, Christy immediately spotted her mother's car in the driveway of the home. As Christy and her boyfriend pulled up to the house, local police just happened to be at the house at the same time. They got out of the car, and Christy's boyfriend walked into the home and got as far as the foyer, but immediately was stopped by state police, who ordered him not to proceed any further and to exit the home. The orders were for good reason. 40-year-old Charlotte Fimiano, wife, mother, daughter, sister, co-worker, and friend, was found in a pool of her own blood in the home she showed less than 18 hours earlier. An autopsy performed on Charlotte revealed she was strangled with a cord that had a spiral configuration similar to a telephone cord. She was shot once in the face at close range, just below the right eye, and in the back of the head with a .22 caliber gun. She was fully clothed and still had her coat on when she was found. Her estimated time of death was the day before, between noon and 3 p.m. Early on in the investigation, authorities said it would be unlikely that any information about the crime would be released until an arrest was made, and no one was ruled out at the time. It was never revealed if authorities had a suspect or motive regarding Charlotte's murder. Police didn't know if the appointment Charlotte had was with a stranger or someone she had met previously. In addition to the interviews, police combed through the fields and woods near the Chelsea Lane home and reviewed Charlotte's personal papers and calendars. The investigation spanned other states as police tried to determine if any other killings of real estate agents could be connected to Charlotte's case. At the time, investigators declined to comment on whether police had connected any other killings to Charlotte's. However, police probed a possible link to a similar, unsolved homicide of an agent in Decatur, Illinois. In 1994, realtor Sherry Lewis was strangled in a house after making an appointment to show the property to a person she had never met. To this day, no suspect has been named, nor has anyone been arrested in the murder of Sherry Lewis. Police had interviewed hundreds of real estate agents across the Lehigh Valley and dozens of Charlotte's friends, co-workers, family members, and even neighbors in the Chelsea Lane neighborhood. At Charlotte's funeral, the standing room only crowd of about 700 people waited to pay their respects and condolences to Charlotte's family and friends. All, understandably, were still trying to process the horrific events. Relatives and friends read poems and placed symbolic gifts, including pictures of family and friends, into a wicker basket near Charlotte's closed casket. A candle was lit to represent Charlotte and the light of faith, truth, and love that she represented so well. In the basket of cards near Charlotte's casket sat a letter from Christy, who wrote this letter to Charlotte the previous Mother's Day, and it read, "Thank you for being wonderful you. I'll always be grateful for the way you taught me to stand on my own 2 feet. 3 months after her murder, the investigation had moved beyond Charlotte's family. Specifically, her husband Christian was cleared and not named a suspect. At the time, investigators declined to say what they were searching for, if anything. Understandably, realtors, as well as local residents, were concerned if a murderer was on the loose. Again, police were vague, stating there was a homicide with no arrests, and certainly the person is out there. Realtors in the Lehigh Valley were shocked over what happened, and the local Realtors Association urged members to be careful when dealing with strangers, which prompted local real estate companies offering security seminars that drew more than 100 salespeople. Many of them who attended voiced fears about a serial killer stalking unescorted real estate agents. Some brokers implemented new guidelines that included having a sign-in sheet and asking for photo identification from clients. Agents armed themselves with pepper spray and mace. Other safety features included using electronic lock boxes at vacant homes. These new boxes required a code to unlock them, and it also kept track of the date, time, and the agent who entered. At the time of Charlotte's murder, Weikert Realtors offered a $100,000 reward for any information leading to the conviction of her killer. But after investigating hundreds of leads over a decade, state police have made no arrest. And at the time of this podcast, that reward is no longer being offered. In May of 1998, following up on another lead, Orange County, New Jersey detectives investigated a man who made suspicious calls to realtors in Monmouth and Middlesex counties of New Jersey. New Jersey detectives searched the apartment of the man who shared the apartment with his parents and determined that there was no link between him and the murder of Charlotte. The last time anyone from Charlotte's immediate family spoke publicly about her death was in September of 2007. At the time, both Charlotte's daughter Christy and her sister Bernadette desperately wanted, and most likely still want to see, the person or persons who committed this awful crime to her mother and sister see justice served. Bernadette felt the attack on Charlotte was random because she could not comprehend how anyone would want to hurt her sister. Bernadette said she doesn't think police forgot about her sister's case, but she's frustrated no arrest has been made. Every few months after the slaying, police would gather family members to update them on the case. Bernadette eventually told police she no longer wanted to know. At the same time, in 2007, police again would reveal very little about the case, saying no arrest warrants were ever issued, and they had not recently retested any physical evidence. Although police had current and good information about Charlotte's killing, they still didn't know if they were any closer to solving the case. In February of 2010, Northampton County's District Attorney John Morganelli talked about bringing a number of cases to the grand jury, Charlotte's case being one of them. Typically, a grand jury helps the prosecutor decide whether to file charges against a suspect in a crime. Grand juries typically consist of 23 people, and the individual jurors may have jury duty for months at a time. Prosecutors use grand jury proceedings as test run for trials and take a grand jury's perception of the evidence seriously. As of now, nothing has been mentioned regarding Charlotte's case in the grand jury. So here we are, present day, in the year of 2022, with no named suspects, nor any arrests. Let the 25th anniversary of Charlotte's murder be the last year that her case goes unsolved. If you have any information regarding the cold case of Charlotte Fimiano, please contact your local police department or call 1-800-4-PA-TIPS or 1-800-472-8477. You can also visit the website at pacrimestoppers.org. You've been listening to Departed in Pennsyltucky, Part 1, Time is of the Essence, the case of Charlotte Fimiano. Thank you for listening, and remember to tune into Part 2, where we discuss possible motives and suspects with never-before-released details about the crime.